I'm guessing you've watched many videos about the new Osmo Nano, and the vast majority are telling you what an amazing and awesome little camera this is. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong, but there are also a few negatives about the Osmo Nano that perhaps they're not telling you and you need to be aware of. So let's take a closer look at the new DJI Osmo Nano, what's good and what's not so good. About 4 years ago, DJI introduced this, the Action 2, a camera way ahead of its time with a large sensor which at the time was as large as any action camera on the market, and with features to match, all in a tiny form factor, weighing in at less than 60 grams, including a built-in touchscreen. Now, ultimately, the Action 2 was not a great commercial success. I think users had a hard time adapting to the Lego brick style modularity, and for POV users, the form factor of the camera was just a little bit too boxy and awkward. And then of course there were the issues with overheating. Now, DJI did come up with this heat dissipating case which seemed to solve a lot of those overheating problems, but apparently this was all too little too late. DJI went back to focusing on more conventional action cameras, and 1 year later the successor was the Action 3. Now, I always had a bit of a soft spot for the Action 2, so I was really excited when the rumors started to surface about a possible successor. And here it is, the new DJI Osmo Nano. Now, currently these are pretty tough to get hold of here in the USA. I was pretty lucky that I found it through an Amazon Marketplace seller, so yes, I did purchase it with my own money. And I'll also place the links to where I found it in the video description in case you're interested. Now, just like its predecessor, the Osmo Nano comes packed with high-end features, including a super large 1/1.3-inch sensor on a par with any action camera on the market. You have 13.5 stops of dynamic range, 10-bit D-Log-M color, super night mode, support for Osmo audio, and so on and so on. And again, all housed within a tiny form factor. Now, all that of course is just marketing hype, and in today's video we want to see what it looks like in reality, the good stuff and the not so good stuff. And trust me, there are a few compromises and shortcomings that you need to be aware of. So there's a lot to cover, so as usual I'll place the chapters up here and on the video timeline, but first this. Before we continue with today's video, a quick disclaimer: this video is not sponsored, paid for, or influenced in any way. I purchased all of the equipment with my own money, and the opinions are entirely my own. Now, I do include links to the featured products as well as my recording equipment. These may appear throughout the video and in the video description. If you purchase using these links, I may make a commission, and this is what helps fund the channel, but rest assured there is no price disadvantage to you. You are getting the best price I can find. Alternatively, if you want to support the channel, you could follow this link and buy me a coffee. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. So back to the video. So when it comes to the design and form factor, DJI have moved away from the square, almost cube-like design of the Action 2 to a more elongated and rectangular design with rounded edges and corners, which I think overall is a lot more practical. The rectangular shape allows the screen on the Vision Dock to be much larger than on the Action 2, and the shape of the camera is a lot more practical when it comes to POV mounting or mounting in general. Now, one big change compared to the Action 2 is that the camera no longer has its own touchscreen, which some people may see as a disadvantage, but it does make the camera a lot more rugged and easy to mount without fear of damaging the screen. And I think overall it's probably the right move. Now, of course, this does mean that the Osmo Nano only has one screen, but the good news is you can mount it to the camera in either orientation in order to have either a front or rear facing screen. Now, it is a little bit fiddly and there are some quirks to it, and we'll talk about those later on. So the shape of the bricks may have changed, but let's face it, we're still talking Lego here. And while it might be kind of cool and innovative, I'm not entirely convinced that it's the right solution. You see, the whole idea of a camera like this is you basically have two cameras in one. You have your tiny camera for your POV work, or that you can mount in all kinds of flexible ways. And when you want to go back to a more conventional action camera, you mount it to the Vision dock, which gives you extra battery power, the touchscreen, access to a memory card, ports, and so on. And it's basically this configuration that I'm not 100% convinced about. Firstly, and maybe this is just my imagination, it just does not feel as rugged and robust as a typical action camera. And secondly, I do find this upright format difficult to work with, particularly if you're trying to handhold the camera. Now, maybe this is just my personal preference, but frankly, I think there's a reason why almost all action cameras, or for that matter, all cameras, have a horizontal format and not a vertical format. Now, perhaps I'm being unreasonable here, but one final complaint I have about the form factor is it's not nano. Compared to some of the other mini action cameras on the market, it's actually quite big and bulky. Now, I get it, it has a much larger sensor, and a much larger sensor needs more processing power, which needs more battery capacity, and all of those things combine to make a bigger camera. But here's the thing, I didn't ask for a larger sensor. If I want to use a camera with a larger sensor, I'll use my Action 5 Pro. When I buy a camera that's called Nano, what I expect is that it is as small as humanly possible. I mean, DJI has had 4 years to improve on this, and while the shape of the camera might be slightly different, the overall size and weight is about the same, and that's after having removed the touchscreen. Now, one of the big selling points of the Osmo Nano is the fact that it has both onboard memory as well as support for a memory card. And this is something we've seen on other DJI cameras, including the Action 5 Pro, the new Osmo 360, and we also saw this 4 years ago on the Action 2. But there is one major difference when it comes to the Nano, and that is while you are recording, you can only record directly to the onboard memory. You cannot record directly to the memory card. Now, this is a major limitation, and it means, among other things, that your recording time is limited to the amount of storage available in the camera. For example, if you buy the 64GB version, even if you start out with the memory empty under typical recording conditions, you're going to be limited to just over an hour's worth of recording. Now, the camera does allow you to transfer files off the onboard memory onto a memory card, but be warned, this is a pretty slow process, and it also consumes quite a lot of battery power. Now, there's a lot more to this story, and I plan on posting a follow-up video with a lot more detail, so be on the lookout for that. Now, hopefully this is something that can be fixed with a firmware update, but for the time being, this for me is a big issue. All of the other 3 cameras that I mentioned offer you the option of recording directly to the onboard memory or to the memory card, even the Action 2, and I simply don't understand why DJI has done it this way on the Nano. When we're talking about endurance, typically we're talking about how much runtime can you get off a full charge. Now, DJI makes some pretty impressive claims here for the Nano, and my initial testing would seem to confirm most of those claims, but there is one important issue which also affects endurance, and that is overheating. And so far, it looks like the Nano suffers from similar overheating issues as we saw on the Action 2. Now, all of these results are preliminary, but when it comes to the standalone camera, it appears that overheating is only an issue when you are recording in the most demanding modes, for example 4K 120 frames per second, where the camera overheated after just 6 minutes. The bigger issue seems to be when the camera is attached to the Vision dock, and here it's no longer just limited to the most demanding recording conditions. For example, when doing my runtime tests at 4K 30 frames per second, I typically experienced overheating every 30 minutes or so. Now, it does seem that there may be some tricks you can use in order to limit the amount of overheating, but I'm still doing some testing there, and here too I plan on posting a follow-up video with all of the details. Now, on a positive note, when it comes to charging performance, once again, DJI has made some pretty impressive claims for the Nano, and based on my initial testing, it looks like I can definitely confirm those claims and in many cases even beat them. Video quality is definitely not something I'm going to complain about with the Osmo Nano. Now, I was thinking about how to present these examples, whether I just show you the video, do a side-by-side comparison, maybe even a blind comparison, and then I saw the results compared to the Action 5 Pro, and the decision was very simple. Take a look here at the side-by-side examples from the Nano versus the Action 5 Pro, and in my opinion, they're basically identical, but what do you think? Now, I'm not saying that the Action 5 Pro has the best video quality of all action cameras, but I think it's fair to say that it is right up there competing with the very best. And the fact that the Nano can produce almost identical results is pretty impressive. When it comes to low light performance, I saw a little bit more difference between the Nano and the Action 5 Pro, but take a look and see what you think. Now, as I've said in previous videos, when it comes to low light recording, that is not just limited to filming bright city lights at night. For many people, the most common low light recording situation will be something like this, filming indoors under artificial lighting. Now, because we saw that the Osmo Nano was so similar in video performance to the Action 5 Pro, I have set up the two here side by side. I have the Osmo Nano on your right and the Action 5 Pro on your left. So how do the two compare? Now, I have the room lighting set quite dim with a couple of key lights illuminating me, so the background should be quite dim. I should be pretty well lit. But what does it look like on the two? How is the overall exposure? And also be on the lookout for any noise in the shadows. Now, currently both cameras are set to standard video, but of course both support the super night mode, which enhances low light performance. So let's switch them both over to the super night mode and see how it compares then. Okay, and now we've switched over to the super night mode on both cameras. Once again, I have the Osmo Nano on your right and the Action 5 Pro on your left. How does it look now in super night mode? How is the overall exposure? How are the colors? Are you noticing any noise in the shadows? What do you think? Okay, let's do some audio testing, starting out in an indoor environment. Currently, you're listening to me over the onboard microphones of the new DJI Osmo Nano. How is the audio quality? How does it sound in this indoor environment? Now, of course, one of the big selling features of the Osmo Nano, or for that matter, any DJI camera, is something DJI refers to as Osmo Audio, which is the direct and high-quality connection of a DJI wireless microphone, including, of course, the brand new DJI Mic 3. So let's go ahead and power on the Mic 3, which I have previously paired with the Osmo Nano. I get a confirmation message that the two have connected. I can also see the audio level meter at the top of the screen confirming that they are connected. So now you're listening to me over the DJI Mic 3 connected wirelessly to the DJI Osmo Nano. How is the audio quality? How does it compare to the onboard microphones? And now let's continue our test outdoors. Now here too, I find as long as you stay pretty close to the camera, the onboard microphones do a pretty good job. But what do you think? How is the audio quality of the Osmo Nano? Now, a lot of people will be buying this camera for use as a POV camera, and of course there too you want to know how the audio quality sounds. So let me detach the camera. and place it on my chest now in a POV position. So I have the camera now mounted on my chest. How is the audio quality now with the camera as a POV mounted camera? In this section, I just want to point out a few additional quirks and compromises with the Osmo Nano, starting with support of 4K at 120 frames per second. Now, the Nano does support 4K 120, but only as a slow motion mode without sound and without stabilization. And although, yes, it's impressive that a tiny camera like this can handle 4K 120, the reason I find this a little disappointing is because the Action 2 already supported 4K 120 as a standard video mode, including sound and including stabilization. So once again, we seem to have taken a backward step. Next up, a pretty strange quirk. When using the camera detached from the vision dock, of course you can use the vision dock to remotely operate the camera and get a preview of what the camera is seeing. However, if you connect a wireless microphone such as the DJI Mic 3, all of a sudden you lose that preview. Now apparently this is something that DJI have said they will fix in a future firmware update, but again I think it's something you need to be aware of. Another quirk has to do with file transfers. If you have the camera configured in selfie mode, so with the lens and the screen pointed in the same direction, and you attempt to transfer files, whether transferring to a memory card or to your computer, you will get an error message instructing you to switch it back to the normal mode with the lens and screen facing in opposite directions before you can proceed. And one final thing in this section, I just wanted to point out that on both the camera and on the vision dock, each of them just has one button, which can only be used for powering the camera on and off or starting and stopping recording. Unlike most other cameras which have additional buttons, including even customizable buttons, when it comes to the Nano, all other features, including things like just changing modes, have to be done using the touchscreen. Before wrapping up today's video, I just wanted to give you a heads up about some additional videos I will be posting featuring the Osmo Nano. As already mentioned, I will be posting a video on battery performance and overheating, another one on memory options and memory strategies, and of course I will be doing a comparison test against the Insta360 Go Ultra. So be on the lookout for those videos soon. So overall then, a pretty mixed review on the DJI Osmo Nano. There's no question it is a very powerful and capable camera, but clearly it does have quite a few shortcomings, hopefully some of which can be resolved with firmware updates. Personally, what disappoints me the most though is that given the 4 years since the Action 2, I just feel that the Osmo Nano should be so much better. So that wraps it up for another video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. If you have any questions, any comments, if you want to share your experience or make suggestions for future videos, please drop those into the comments section. Otherwise, thanks again for watching.